Dustin shocked me because we were shooting a scene.
I'm very sorry about this.
My wine glass was sitting there and he...
You know, she was a brilliant actress, but it was a moment in her life when emotionally...
She could draw on that pain.
At 88 years old, Dustin Hoffman is finally opening up about one of the darkest and most painful chapters of his life, his troubled relationship with Meryl Streep. For decades, both were seen as acting legends, admired for their powerful performances and unforgettable chemistry on screen. But behind the cameras, things were far from perfect. Their work together was filled with tension, anger, and emotional wounds that never fully healed. Over the years, Hoffman faced several allegations of sexual misconduct from multiple women, including claims from Streep herself about his harsh and inappropriate behavior during filming. Now, as he looks back on his long career, Hoffman is revealing why his feelings toward Meryl Streep were never simple and why what happened between them still haunts him to this day. Dustin Lee Hoffman was born on August 8, 1937 in Los Angeles, California, to Lillian Gold and Harry Hoffman, Jewish immigrants from Ukraine who came to America chasing a fragile dream of a better life. The Hoffmans lived modestly, often balancing on the edge of financial strain. Harry once worked behind the scenes at Columbia Pictures before giving up his Hollywood hopes for a steadier job in furniture sales, while Lillian poured her energy into keeping their small home warm and hopeful. Growing up in Los Angeles, Dustin could see the shimmer of Hollywood from afar, but it felt like a distant planet compared to his humble world. As a boy, he found solace in music, spending hours at the piano, dreaming of becoming a classical musician. Yet fate had a different script. At Los Angeles High School, he was far from a star student, quiet, unfocused, and unsure of his future. After graduation, he tried his hand at medicine at Santa Monica College, but the pull of art proved stronger than science. Within a year, he walked away from his textbooks, unknowingly stepping onto the uncertain road that would one day make him one of the most celebrated actors of his generation. Dustin Hoffman's first taste of acting came at the Pasadena Playhouse, where he shared the stage with another struggling dreamer, Gene Hackman. Both were young, broke, and chasing a future that seemed almost impossible to attain. After 2 years of stage work and rejection, Hackman left for New York, and Hoffman soon followed, hoping the city might offer what Hollywood had denied him. And in the cramped apartments of the 1960s, Hoffman, Hackman, and Robert Duvall lived together. 3 hungry actors surviving on hope and black coffee, wondering if their talent would ever find a spotlight. As Hackman later recalled, "The idea of any of us succeeding in film never crossed our minds. We just wanted to work, but work didn't come easily for Hoffman. His unconventional looks and small stature made casting directors turn him away. Robert Duvall once joked he looked like Barbra Streisand in drag. Rejections piled up, and to make ends meet, Hoffman briefly stepped away from acting to teach. Yet the fire never went out. He immersed himself in method acting at the legendary Actors Studio, learning to live, breathe, and feel every character he touched. In the early 1960s, he began to carve a small but steady path through New York's theater scene, off-Broadway plays, summer stock productions, and assisting directors like Ulu Grossbard. Each minor role, from a cook for Mr. General to Harry Noonan Knight, shaped his craft and strengthened his resolve. Dustin Hoffman's rise to stardom was anything but ordinary. After earning a drama award for his performance in the 1966 off-Broadway play, he made his modest film debut in The Tiger Makes Out the following year. At the time, Hoffman was still struggling to make ends meet directing small-town theater productions in Fargo, North Dakota, for just enough money to keep himself afloat. He had little reason to believe his life was about to change forever. That change came when director Mike Nichols, impressed by Hoffman's raw talent, took an enormous gamble by casting him as Benjamin Braddock in The Graduate 1967. The role of a confused young man entangled in a scandalous affair with an older woman struck a chord with a generation questioning its own direction. Hoffman's unconventional looks defied Hollywood norms, but that was exactly what made him unforgettable. The film became a cultural phenomenon, earning him his first Oscar nomination and turning him into an unlikely icon of youth and vulnerability. Yet fame did not come with ease. Hoffman, who considered himself a stage actor first, returned to Broadway after The Graduate, insisting he didn't want to sell out. He was still scraping by, collecting unemployment checks, when Midnight Cowboy 1969 came his way. Determined to prove his range, he transformed into Ratso Rizzo, a sickly, desperate con man, a role that could not have been more different from Benjamin Braddock. To convince director John Schlesinger he was right for the part, Hoffman arrived at their meeting disguised as a vagrant, and his dedication paid off. The film won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and Hoffman earned his second Oscar nomination. By the end of the decade, he was sharing magazine covers with Mia Farrow after co-starring in John and Mary 1969, hailed as one of the defining actors of his generation. Behind the success, however, was a man who had battled doubt, poverty, and rejection, an artist still learning to believe in the miracle of his own unlikely rise. Dustin Hoffman met Anne Byrne in 1963, and after years of companionship, they married in May 1969. He embraced her daughter Karina as his own, and soon after the couple welcomed a child together, Jenna, that same year. Life in New York's Greenwich Village was vibrant yet unpredictable. In 1970, their world was shaken when a bomb accidentally exploded in a neighboring townhouse occupied by members of the Radical Weathermen group. The blast killed 3 people and left the quiet street in chaos. Hoffman was even captured in footage from that haunting aftermath, standing among the stunned onlookers. The marriage endured for over a decade, but ultimately ended in 1980. Not long after, Hoffman found comfort in a familiar face, Lisa Gottsiegen, a woman he'd known since childhood. Their bond, rooted in shared history and mutual understanding, blossomed into love. They married later that same year and together raised 4 children, Jacob, Rebecca, Maxwell, and Alexandra. And Hoffman often spoke with pride of his close-knit family and his return to Jewish traditions, ensuring his children celebrated their bar and bat mitzvahs. In his later years, he reflected wistfully on faith and heritage, admitting one quiet regret, that he never became fluent in Hebrew. In 2017, Dustin Hoffman, long regarded as one of Hollywood's most gifted and complex performers, found himself at the center of controversy when 7 women came forward with allegations of sexual misconduct. Among them was Anna Graham Hunter, who claimed that at age 17, while interning on the set of Death of a Salesman, Hoffman made inappropriate comments and asked her to give him foot massages. The revelation struck a chord during a moment when the entertainment industry was beginning to reckon with its hidden abuses of power. Hoffman issued an apology, expressing remorse if his behavior had made anyone uncomfortable, insisting that such actions were not reflective of who I am. In 1979, while filming Kramer vs. Kramer, the tension between Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep ran much deeper than the script revealed. Hoffman, famous for his intense method acting, pushed the limits in shocking ways. He slapped Streep during their very first scene and hurled personal taunts about her late partner, actor John Cazale, hoping to spark genuine anger and grief. Streep later described it as an overstep, saying his behavior was unprofessional and deeply disrespectful. For years, the behind-the-scenes drama remained a whispered Hollywood secret, overshadowed by the film's success. But in 2017, the past resurfaced. A Slate article revisited claims that Hoffman had crossed personal boundaries with Streep during their early collaboration. Streep's representative confirmed that an incident had indeed occurred, but clarified that Hoffman had apologized decades earlier and that she had accepted it. Still, the revival of those painful memories brought renewed scrutiny to Hoffman's legacy, reminding the world that behind the Oscar-winning performances was a troubling reality, one where art, emotion, and exploitation became dangerously intertwined. That December, tensions erupted publicly when comedian John Oliver confronted Hoffman during a live event marking the 20th anniversary of Wag the Dog. What was intended as a nostalgic conversation quickly turned into an uncomfortable exchange about accountability and truth. Hoffman, visibly taken aback, defended himself, saying he felt unfairly judged by public opinion. "You push a button," he said bitterly, "and suddenly I'm a predator." It's not true. The debate surrounding Hoffman divided opinions in Hollywood. Some like Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and Liam Neeson spoke in his defense, describing him as eccentric but kind-hearted, a man more mischievous than malicious. Yet for many, the controversy left a complicated legacy, a reminder that even the brightest stars can cast the darkest shadows, and that the line between brilliance and brokenness in Hollywood is often painfully thin. In his later years, Dustin Hoffman's life has been marked by a quiet struggle, one that unfolded far from the cameras and applause that once defined him. Behind the brilliance of his long career lies a man deeply affected by loss, illness, and the weight of his own past. The deaths of those closest to him, including his beloved brother, left empty spaces that fame could never fill. Each passing seemed to chip away at his once vibrant spirit, leaving him reflective, subdued, and at times lonely. In 2013, news emerged that Hoffman had been diagnosed with cancer. Though he underwent treatment and reportedly recovered, the experience changed him profoundly. For someone who had spent a lifetime transforming into other people, facing his own mortality forced him to confront his most human fears. Friends described him as more introspective after his illness, grateful yet fragile, carrying the quiet awareness that time was no longer endless. These health battles, compounded by emotional wounds from loss and controversy, have weighed heavily on the actor. The vitality that once defined him has softened into a kind of melancholy acceptance. At 86, Hoffman lives with the echoes of a life lived in extremes: fame and fallibility, triumph and pain. His story now feels less like that of a movie star and more like that of a man who has spent his final chapters learning how to endure the silence after the applause fades. In the early 1970s, Dustin Hoffman proved that his success in The Graduate and Midnight Cowboy was no accident. He threw himself into a string of bold and transformative performances that redefined the modern actor's craft. In Little Big Man 1970, he played Jack Crabb, a character who astonishingly aged from a young man to 121 years old, a performance that displayed his deep commitment to authenticity and range. Though the film drew critical praise, it went largely unnoticed during awards season, a reminder that Hollywood didn't always know how to reward complexity. Hoffman's appetite for challenge grew fiercer. He tackled psychological depth in Who's Harry Kellerman? And Why Is He Saying Those Terrible Things About Me? And raw brutality in Straw Dogs, both 1971 followed by Papillon 1973 opposite Steve McQueen. Yet it was Lenny 1974, his portrayal of the brilliant but self-destructive comedian Lenny Bruce, that pushed him into darker, more vulnerable territory. Initially hesitant to take the role, Hoffman immersed himself in Bruce's world, reading his writings and watching his performances until he felt the man's turmoil living within him. The result was haunting. Hoffman disappeared so completely into Bruce that critics described the performance as stunningly alive. The film earned 6 Oscar nominations, including one for Hoffman, cementing his reputation as a fearless actor willing to bleed for truth on screen. He carried that same intensity into All the President's Men, 1976, embodying journalist Carl Bernstein with sharp intelligence and urgency. Alongside Robert Redford, he captured the spirit of a nation unraveling the secrets of its own government. Soon after, in Marathon Man, 1976, he reunited with Midnight Cowboy director John Schlesinger and delivered one of his most harrowing performances. In his pursuit of realism, Hoffman deprived himself of sleep for days, prompting co-star Laurence Olivier's now famous quip, "My dear boy, why don't you try acting?" By the decade's end, Hoffman reached emotional depths few actors dared explore. His performance in Kramer vs. Kramer, 1979, mirrored his own heartbreak amid a real-life divorce. Playing a man who learns to be a father only after losing his wife, Hoffman found a kind of healing through the pain. The film won 5 Oscars, including Best Actor for Hoffman, and audiences saw not just a character, but a man confronting his own fragility, love, and redemption. In the 1990s, Dustin Hoffman's career entered a rich, unpredictable phase, one that revealed his versatility and unrelenting passion for performance. In 1991, he lent his voice to The Simpsons, portraying the kind-hearted substitute teacher, Mr. Bergstrom, under the pseudonym Sam Eddick, a clever nod to his Jewish roots. That same year, he transformed into the flamboyant Captain Hook in Steven Spielberg's Hook, earning a Golden Globe nomination while enduring the weight, literally, of a costume so heavy he had to wear an air-conditioned suit beneath it. The decade saw Hoffman in an array of acclaimed films: Deke Tracy, Billy Bathgate, Hero, and Outbreak, the latter casting him as a determined army virologist racing against time to stop a deadly virus. His intensity carried the film, and critics praised the anxious realism he brought to the screen. Hoffman's later roles reflected a mature performer exploring both vulnerability and irony in Sleepers 1996 and American Buffalo 1996. He embodied men worn down by guilt and moral struggle. That same year, he delivered one of his sharpest performances in Wag the Dog, 1997, a dark political comedy where he played a Hollywood producer helping to invent a fake war, a biting metaphor for manipulation and truth. The role earned him his 7th Oscar nomination and reminded audiences that even amid satire, Hoffman could find the soul of humanity. As the years went on, Hoffman drifted between drama and comedy, from Runaway Jury and Finding Neverland to his tender chemistry with Emma Thompson in Last Chance Harvey, 2008, where his self-critical nature deepened every scene. His voice work as Master Shifu in Kung Fu Panda became unexpectedly iconic, earning him an Annie Award and introducing him to a new generation. In his later years, Hoffman transitioned into directing with Quartet 2012, a poignant reflection on aging artists facing time's inevitable fade. He continued to act sporadically in the Meyerowitz Stories 2017, As They Made Us 2022, and Sam and Kate 2023, often alongside younger actors, including his own son. Even as age softened his features, that restless spark remained. The curiosity, the perfectionism, the ache for authenticity. From method-driven madness to meditative calm, Hoffman's journey became a mirror of the artist's eternal battle to create, to endure, and to remain alive in the work long after the applause fades.